stand by. And action. Starts wobbling, wobble, wobble, and over it goes. Crash. Okay, let's set up for a take, guys.
Just a couple of people standing.
Lee.
He's got speed.
And action. And wobble.
And cut. And take two, tail slate, camera B.
Very good. Yeah, why not? May as well. Shocking. I think you could just do a little bit more for us, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, just a touch. Oh, it's almost like you're about to burst into tears, you know. I don't know, something that's not too over the top, but something slightly comic, you know.
Okay. There's a dicky bird stuck back on.
Well, he is. Did that one come off? Oh, just inside.
And wobble and crash.
And bending over it, Stuart. Okay, cut. All right. Looked all right, didn't it? We'll just go check.
Alright, just put the mic into the position while the camera's still there. Just come right now. Yeah. Just pan. Just from that first lane. Down to here. Yep. Yep.
You spin around like that, and it's like, you know, hey, whoa! And then it's just whoa, bang, bang, you know. And by that stage, Michael's got a cross. So it's like oh, bang. So he's kind of like just starts shooting out of the fright of it. I think it's better if it's the guy with the gun. Now, what we want to do is the first shot we do, we'll do it without any shooting and stuff. So
Okay.
we'll do it with two cameras. So we have a camera over here which will be inside the cop, but if you can throw the statue past the camera. And then we've got a camera down here behind Sue. Just a camera down there, which will then just pick up a run across and a leap down.
Okay. Hold it.
One little bit of note. No, the second camera. Something extra. You just suddenly spin around. No picking up. Okay. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Okay, here we go.
Just a little push it, Richard. Michael's reaction. Was it, Judge?
Quiet, please. And roll. Right.
Hey, 13, take one camera. He slipped.
And action.
And the judge jumps. Crash!
Stay right there.
Heads up! Good. Bang! Crash!
I think we're compromising unnecessarily. I would.
Okay. So.
I mean, that's actually quite a nice shot, though. That's a nice shot of him in the foreground with the cops behind him. Oh, that's enough. Obviously not.
Need more. Need more pads?
Stand on one leg,
Right.
and now bend it and fold it. That's what you want to do, just faster.
Was that what I was doing?
No, you went like this and then fell back on that way. Boom. Yeah. Like that.
And action.
And crash!
We're tight here. Is that not working for you?
Oh no, that'll
Yeah, we do
that'll be
shoot
okay.
them together as a reverse so that we get the action as
Action.
And crash!
Let's see, right there.
Hey, butt. Oh, good hands.
Hey, stop!
Still looks a little light to me, eh?
Just a little bit.
Oh, he did, yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
Like you did last.
Yeah, talk to Stu about that. Okay, it's worth one more go, eh?
Yeah.
To get it right? Yep, okay.
Just get makeup to touch them up.
What's going to happen now on action? On action is that you'll hit the ground,
Okay.
you fire off the first shot immediately.
Okay.
You don't start firing till he does that first shot. So you're standing there, and it's almost like have your gun down, and when you hear the first bang, bang, just go straight into bang, fire straight away. So,
Rehearsals on the guns. So you should leave. You should start around here with these guys instead of bail. Everyone's running off. Just in the gun. Okay, gun firing. Gun firing.
Pretty manic stuff, but it's good.
Because it's very unusual, you know, to hear like guns blazing in Wellington, New Zealand.
But we're Americans, so we feel right at home.
Oh yeah, we felt totally comfortable. We was like, more guns, louder. Louder. People are not going to believe this, you know.
In fact, we brought with us, tapes, relaxation tapes from the States of just,
gunfire.
Just going on.
Gunfire, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
Chicago, Philadelphia,
Yeah.
just gunfire, to help you go to sleep. When you're here for a while, that's the only reason I'm homesick is because, after 2, 3 months of peace and quiet and no pollution and beautiful weather and beautiful scenery, you need some crime and mayhem and all the other things that make our country great. This is a close
It's shunted, isn't it?
I mean, the only thing you could do if you were really brave is to get the first one and then just tilt up to get
I
the
thought
second
I'd
one.
do that because it doesn't matter. If I miss the second one, then I miss the second one.
And
But
you
at least
got,
I
you got the first one. Okay, all right. So you're going to tilt.
Roll cameras. Guns rolling.
A14, take 2, camera A, head slat.
And action. Cool.
just got the
Yeah,
tail end of that.
I think you missed something.
That's good, and you just pause there at the right time too, just to see it sort of happening behind. It's good. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Yeah, we'll print those ones as well. You will, even when the front one's going, you've still got a second probably before this one actually starts to.
See him now. If you blow it now, he's not good.
See, the problem here,
Yeah.
Is there any way you could run your leads over here?
the problem is that I have to, when I first go down, obviously someone smashed my face, I have to use my hands, then I can cover it up.
Action.
Bang! Bang! Bang, bang, bang!
Here we go. Ready? And action.
Shit! Bang, 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 bang!
Okay. Good. Good.
I might give it more of that and that.
On the day, Mike, depending on what happens and how it all is, if you don't feel like just
Okay, set up for take. We're shooting.
Feet on C.
And action!
Holy shit! Cut! Hey!
It's been a few bumps and a few bruises, but, you know, like Bob Zemeckis and I used to say, pain is temporary, film is forever. You get through it.
Because this is going to fall in a second.
Okay, let's lose it.
Looks good.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm impressed with it. Have you seen yours?
That's great. Excellent stuff.
Do you need more on that side?
You got a cable version for this? Sorry, this is camera's in here, and you and Mike are charging in here. You're in front. You're filming the first shot. You're sitting around here.
We're going all the way back.
On this rehearsal, John, spin around, shoot at Jim, and at the point you are where you're shooting at Jim, the best thing you can do is to take a reference of what's behind him.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's better than anything. Yeah.
That's great.
So if you just start here, now, I mean, we're going to shoot everyone separately, but what we'll do in the rehearsal is start you all off at the same, and just rehearse with everybody doing their thing.
Will this be a mark back here, Peter?
What? Are you unionizing something? Is that what this is about?
Oh, come on, Frank. Now, you know it's not about that.
What is it about?
It's about other things.
Legitimate
complaints. Cigars.
Fumes in the car.
You've been promising to buy me a box of cigars since I don't know how long.
I hate to break it.
I have a pollen intolerance. I mean, it's more than anyone do the smoking my face. Now, see, that's just the kind of talk that...
Darn it, Frank! You give us what we want, or I'm gonna bust your ass! Oh, you talking about those little wine-soaked things with the plastic?
Now, see, you've been watching too many Shaft movies. I'm talking about some Cubans.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Some Ricky Ricardo and some people...
They're here, Johnny.
Turn over.
Set.
Action. Here we go! Positions, please. No more smoke. Hold the smoke. Okay, roll. Tail flight. 3, 2, and action! Go! Tail flight.
Sorry, this is camera's in here, and you and Mike are charging in here. You're in front, and you're sitting around here. We should entertain if you're going to go high or low first, just so the guys know.
Well, what I thought was, because it's there, I thought I'd knock out that stuff. That'd be like my natural thing. I'd look at that and see if I could widen it, and then I'd go, oh yeah, it's widening, great.
And then would you go high or low?
I'd probably go up in here.
Okay, so we should go like there, and then I guess you're going to go down.
Yeah.
And it would be quite. I mean, it'd be quite good if it was got to a certain point that you just kind of like drop that, and maybe both of you just went in the last couple of times, the last 2 or 3 with your hands and go on.
Yeah, well, that'll be one of those things that'll be like, because you would only do this for as long as it took until you looked like somebody could get through. And you're like, can you get through now?
And then you might be just using your shoulders or elbows just to go through with the last.
I use elbows.
Now, what we should do is just to walk around in the other room and just see what's there, so that at least you guys know when you get around the other side.
There's nothing there.
This is the.
You nosy little bastards! I said go home!
Scotty's going to be down. Just show us where you're going to be, Scotty.
Here's the camera.
There's the camera, and here's the operator.
Where are you?
And there he is. And he's
I'm going to do a bit of various until you come through.
to bend. Yeah. A bit of various. Now, there's a fire extinguisher coming through. These things are going to fly, Scotty, so just be
Are they real?
No, they're heavy. They are actually quite solid. They're fake, but they're solid.
Yeah.
And I don't waive the possibility that might fly out of my hand and fire. I mean, I don't think it will, but I mean, just be aware of it.
The thing that you're ramming.
Here's the fire extinguisher, which is about this long now. So we'll rehearse that the opening Steadicam bit just up until the point of impact.
What I'll do is I'll smash it a couple times, and then you like I'll smash it twice. I'll smash it 3 times, and then I'll stop for a second, and then you like go and start clearing it, and then I'll kind of get that that's what we'll do, and then I'll smash it once or twice. I'll say okay, and then you clear out a little bit and just hit a couple, until we get a big enough hole, and then I'll say, do you think you can get through? And you'll say yes.
So no, I have my too much food for lunch.
No.
Just do it. You know, I'm having a fat day. You know.
And action! Tell slide camera B. Cut. 14:10. Take 1. Camera B. Tail slide.
So if we have one in the mag, but not in the barrel, and indeed Dee can just do that, because you're seeing them, you're just seeing them like just running down the say.
Now I know they don't have anything that they can hurt me with, right?
No, this is
So I wouldn't
totally
be
up.
carefully coming around the corner.
No, this is just as a racing, this is running, and it's I mean, what's it's just trying to capture a real scary feeling of being pursued in a dark building, narrow corridors, kind of scream and just snarl and just be kind of totally, just be really scary.
I see them?
Out of control. You see them. You see them straight through there.
Tráilers.
Boom, straight away, bang.
Ready and action.
Okay. Well, there we go. Good.
We're just waiting for the camera to come back and we're right to go. To rock and roll.
Do you need more on that side?
Ready?
14:12. Take 1. Cameras A and B.
Set.
And action. It's a cut.
Okay.
The stainless steel's already, right? Thank you, Dean. Well, I think that'll do for the day. Go home.
Very good.
I'm just going to go sleep in this.
Well, love you to go home and sleep. Thank you very much.
The A unit must
So go and get over your flight.
Set.
And action. Cut. Cool.
You do really react in a way that doesn't look entirely planned. Which is actually really good. We'll have to just do the bit at the end when Denise comes running in again. You come up here and feel the torchlight will swing onto you. And just we'll have to get a position up here, an accurate position of you, just to tuck yourself down. Because there's a camera around the corner here that'll get you in the top on the back wall.
Oh, okay.
Action. Tail slide, camera B.
Okay, good.
Sorry.
14:06. Take 1. Camera B. Tail slide.
No, I got you. Oh, you were there.
You did a movement and you came back or something.
I ducked out and I came back.
You came back, I think, yeah, but you did come back.
I can also do this. I can also go to here.
Oh yeah, and
And come back.
actually, that's the one. That's the one, and we use that. Yeah, that's stronger.
Where you come around
That's
here,
that's stronger.
and I come back, and then I'm like this.
Yeah, that's yeah. Right. We can feels like we can use all of that.
Yeah.
That's the
It's good. It's good.
Action!
Oh, I missed it. Let me see. Oh, this is great.
Okay, one more, please. One more. You can pick it up and say Frank. You can kind of grab it, Frank.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah. And then, okay, fine. So that sounds good.
Great.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so
Statue of Liberty on too.
Yeah.
yeah. No, so that's really good, and we've just got Mike on the stairs. So what we'll have to do in terms of our reference is to get the height of a couple of stairs, and so when we're on the blue screen stage, that's the level that Mike. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, Mike just jumps on the floor, and we just lower our camera by that amount when we're on the stage. It's one of those shots, Mike, is gonna. It's always going to be like you just take over the frame. It's like if you just time it with Casey about to say chapel, and it's like. You know, I mean, that movement, rather than just being still and just doing it with your face, it'd be nice to get that sort of, you know, that sort of body movement on it too.
Yeah, I can do that.
Without don't go too crazy with this.
I shan't.
Still on the floor, please.
And sit.
Excuse me, doctor. We're looking for 12.
Oh, right. Go up the stairs to the 4th floor, down the corridor to your right, just opposite the chapel. I'll get somebody to help you. Orderly! Orderly! Are you deaf? I said, are you deaf, orderly? Wait! Moron!
And gun swings up, Casey backing away and cut. Not bad, we'll go again. Let's play back the mic.
Busy hallway.
Yeah.
You like to let him run?
It's good. It's good.
I think that I might have cut a piece of his coat. The arm thing was great.
You did. I don't know whether I noticed it below down. I don't know how much of it's still in it.
Orderly, are you deaf?
Is it step on purpose or is that?
Oh, no.
Did that slip?
No, that's just slipping at the same place. I'm consistent. Deliberate.
No, we'll try not to do it if you can.
Yeah, I'll try not to do that.
If you can avoid it, try.
Minus anger.
Okay. And fire! Okay. Good. Good. I think we should be careful, Casey, if you double up too much like that, we're actually yeah, so more like that. Oh, this show push, yeah. Now, what's it going to happen with Casey's tie here, Steve? Oh, it's going to get chopped off there. It'll blow out. It'll blow out. Okay, well that was, shall we rehearse again? We'll just shoot, hey?
No, he found it.
Here we go!
It's in his pocket. Stand on control.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And, okay, stand by and roll. Action!
And fire! Cut!
Yes. It's not real, is it? It's not real.
I think she needs a trundle.
This is open, isn't it?
No, open on the way out.
I'll just leave it there.
A trail of syringes, band-aids.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Rehearsal, please.
Okay, where are we going?
Keep it off there, eh?
Ready to go, guys.
Keep the leaves fairly subtle.
This is private property.
Mrs. Bradley, I Dr. Lindsay works at the medical center.
No, you don't. I know everyone who works there.
Cut. Good. We'll just try one more of it. It was great, really. Maybe you shouldn't offer your hand quite so early. Maybe it should be like, you know, I'm Dr. Lindsay from the medical centre, you know, because you're sort of quite a long way away from here, aren't you?
Right, yeah.
It's just the fact that you're, I mean, maybe you just, you know, you say your name and step up and, you know, okay. Just put a little, possibly a little early. We're going to lose the sun completely for the day, aren't we, very soon? I think the most difficult character in the film to conceptualise and like imagine was the Grim Reaper figure. The Grim Reaper is, you know, our most classical image of the death figure of the soul collector coming to harvest the souls and take them away. And so, you know, it was important that we used this image, but I didn't want it to be, you know, totally boring, and I wanted something to be original and funky about it. So I didn't know quite what it was, and we threw around various ideas, and Christian drew some drawings of, you know, what he imagined the Reaper to be like.
One of the first ones I did was this one here, which is a very sort of animalesque creature with high shoulders and long arms, but it was still going with the fact that there's a creature under there, which is why I've still got the hand coming out from under a cuff.
I wanted him to be the Reaper, I wanted him to have the scythe, I wanted him to be the figure of death, because the whole thing at this stage in the movie is that death has come to this town and that it has to be a recognisable figure. If it was a totally fantastical monster, something we'd never seen before, then, you know, we wouldn't be thinking death all the time, we'd be thinking, oh, monster.
I did this illustration here, which, because I'd put the hands back into shadow, it is not very well defined, but Pete saw this and took that to be that the hands are actually part of the cloth. It was just a gnarled piece of cloth draping off the end that formed a hand, and he really liked that idea.
So I think that was, you know, the first sort of breakthrough that we had with the Reaper, was the concept that there's nothing actually underneath the cloak. There's no creature actually in there. What it is that it's the cloth itself is the living creature, and what, you know, the hands are caused by the corners of the cloth sort of ripped into strips, and they're the fingers. If like the wind blew the cape up, you know, there wouldn't be anything under there. There's no feet. It's just moving around like there's an invisible demon inside the cloth. And at that point, you know, I really felt we had, you know, a predator that was going to be interesting. The biggest decision that we had to do with the Reaper was trying to figure out, you know, how we were going to achieve the figure. And initially we thought that we'd mix it up with a variety of techniques. We explored the idea of making a rod puppet.
We started to think about him as a predatorial, stealthily moving, almost spider-like character. We needed this thing to move believably like a human, but unfortunately, due to the forward-slung head, it was not of human proportions.
We even designed a combination of a guy in a costume and a puppet.
Someone came up with a very good idea of allowing the actor's head to protrude through the shoulders. He would wear a helmet, and then off his helmet would be a drive rod down to the head of the Reaper.
We even tried to mount a full-size Reaper on the top of the car for some shots where the car's driving down the road at night, and we would only get brief glimpses of him in the darkness, and we thought we would get away with having, you know, like a dummy on top of the car, and we did some tests with that technique. We took the idea of the suit a little further, and we designed something that a stunt performer could wear for the scene where the two ghosts are fighting the Reaper through the Frank's prison cell and all around the prison cell. That scene was originally a lot more elaborate than what ended up in the movie.
Here is we have a sort of a bit of a struggle through the foreground from one side of the cell to the other and then back again. And whichever way you want to do it, I mean, just keep it kind of free flowing.
We thought that by using the guy in the Reaper suit, we could probably get those little flashes of shots, like 1 or 2 seconds long, that we'd get away with it, because we knew that it didn't look that good. We basically ended up shooting Jim Fife and Shia McBride fighting with this guy for, I don't know.
We spent about 2 days fighting with this guy in this weird getup.
It was really unfair to him. It was like fighting a blind guy because he didn't know where we were, and we would jump all over him and have complete disregard for his physical well-being. And, you know, they would take the suit off of him and say, "You all right?" And he'd be sweating and he'd be like all red, and you can practically hear his heart beating on stage, and he'd go, "Yeah, I'm fine. Let's do it again." And so they put the suit back on him, and we just tortured the poor guy. I mean, he ended up going to the hospital.
Was he hospitalized, seriously?
Oh yeah, he definitely went to hospital. I think his shoulder was actually, like, you know, put out of joint.
Oh, God, I sure hope not.
We came to realize that in shooting something that's made up of cloth, whether it's a puppet or a guy in a suit, you know, you can blow fans on it, you can shoot it at different camera speeds, but you, in the end of the day, you really don't get anything different than what it actually is, which is cloth blowing and moving around. And it didn't really, you know, we wanted the Reaper to be something new, something that we hadn't really seen before, and we didn't think that we were achieving it. So we turned to the computer department for a possible solution.
Early on in the production, there was some tests which we accomplished of the Grim Reaper to try and ascertain whether doing him on a computer was a feasible option.
We've seen dinosaur skins and metal men and various other sort of things have been achieved, but having material that sways with gravity, and if the figure spins, the material spins around like cloth or a cape would spin, and you know, all that whole dynamic kind of energy of material and the way it folds and creases, you know, all this was sort of like highly technical computer stuff that you know, we weren't not sure how much success we were going to have with it. I really liked the very first test that we did. You know, for the first time, I think the Reaper came across as a genuinely menacing figure. We were still working on the Reaper, and we had started shooting the movie, which is a little bit of a concern. I mean, we were filming scenes when we didn't quite know how we were going to finally achieve this effect. So we handed Gray some footage of the scene where the Reaper first appears out of the bathroom mirror, you know, sticks his hand in the guy's chest, lowers him to the floor. And we said to Gray, "Here's the footage, you know, there's no Reaper here, the guy's being lowered on wires, so see what you can do, you know, surprise us." And Gray went away and worked on this sequence for a while, and the results that he came back with were incredibly encouraging. It was his way, I think, of proving to us that this was an achievable effect.
The test was well received, and this influenced the decision greatly to make him completely as a computer-generated character.
We ultimately redid the scene once we refined the Reaper, you know, a little bit further, but that initial test is very, you know, representative of what we finally ended up with.
As in the case of most creative processes, it's much easier to define what you don't like once you see it, rather than molding what you like. And I remember when I first got here, we devoted a couple of weeks to defining what that Reaper was supposed to be, and it was Gray's assigned duties to come up with different looks, and we were just trying everything possible from a character that had a positive shadow to a negative shadow on him.
He was refracting his background. He was chrome. He was a Terminator Reaper. He at one stage became completely transparent, kind of a Predator Reaper. A specular Reaper, you could only see him by his highlights. He was a smoky Reaper, continually emitting particles when he moved. Kinetic Reaper, you could only see him, parts of him that were moving.
I think there was probably one that was like a Gray's Breakdown Reaper at one point.
I'll be spending $10,000 in 6 months explaining it all to a psychotherapist.
Now that we'd achieved a look for the Reaper that we really liked, his performance and his character became the most critical thing. And since we were no longer having a guy in a suit who I could sort of yell directions at from the side of the stage, it was very much handed over to the animators, because the Reaper was basically animated in the traditional, frame by frame manner.
The only thing that's different about computer animation opposed to traditional animation are the tools. The tools are the only things that continue to change and evolve. But the principles of animation have always remained the same, and you got to keep that in mind when you're sitting down at the computer, because the computer's not going to do the work for you. It's just another tool. It's like a more complicated type of a pencil. My tools for animating the Reaper here, I'm taking these colored chains, and when I select them, I'm able to put various rotations and translations on them. This is a way that I can manipulate him into a pose that I like. It is like a puppet that exists inside the computer, and you use the mouse and the keyboard to touch the puppet and to manipulate it that way. You could make a nice pose and save keyframes for it, and basically tell the computer, remember this pose at this particular frame, and then you could go to the next pose at another frame, save that key, and then you could watch how it's moving from one key to the next, and then you kind of got to babysit the computer to make sure it's doing it in a natural way, because it tends to make it have this really almost too fluid look to it if you don't. This is a shaded, more solid view to give me an idea of what it's going to look like when it's closer to the end product on film. He's got such a strong shape, between his long fingers and the sharp angles in his shoulders and the way his cowl comes out. It was really easy to find nice poses with that, because it's by default he is so menacing looking already.
This thing was supposed to be a predatory animal, and so we started applying laws of a predatory nature.
He's got these fantastic shoulders, which when he's walking you can really play with to roll them like a tiger would. One of the difficult things with animating the Reaper was that he doesn't have a face, so you can't look at his face and read his attitude based on that. And in this shot where he's walking through the museum, the thing that I found was easiest to play with was his hands and just rolling the fingers, as he's approaching camera.
Right, so this is the Reaper shot at the cemetery.
Right, just checking out the Reaper with the side and the blade, making sure everything looks and feels correct in proportion.
Yeah.
Such that
it was a little nerve-wracking for me trying to direct the animation of the Reaper, because what I'd get to look at was these very early renders that were of a stiff, sort of rigid figure that didn't have the swirling cloak, and it was hard to imagine what he was ultimately going to look like, because it wasn't until he got put through a process called dynamation, where the gravity was applied to his cloak, that he really came to life. I wanted the Reaper shots to be as dynamic as I could, with a lot of energy, a lot of panning, a lot of moving camera, and that tended to make the shots a lot more difficult to achieve. For instance, like a shot where he lands on top of the car. That was difficult because you don't want him to look as if he's floating in the air and not physically grabbing something, so you have to build a model of the car within the computer. Then that has to be motion tracked frame by frame to exactly lock on to the car that was shot on the location. If he's jumping off a fence that we shot from a moving vehicle, that becomes difficult, because a model of the fence has to be made, and then that has to be motion tracked within the computer in 3 dimensions to follow exactly what our camera was doing on the night we filmed the background plate. This stuff just makes shots a lot more difficult. Instead of doing them in 1 week, it takes 3 weeks to do the same sort of shot. Our ghost dog Rustler started out as a puppet. We were thinking that we could use a puppet for 60-70% of the shots, and then use CG for some of the wider shots.
We very, very quickly resolved in our minds that we wanted to go with a bloodhound, the classic Western American dog, the sort of droopy character of the bloodhound made for a great sculpting challenge and a great piece of design. We came up with some very serious design decisions on the way that Rustler would look. He would have no eyes, which was a very interesting one. We took the eyes totally out of the sockets, and by articulating the edges of the sockets, we could create the feeling of an eye line. We made the decision, hopefully for time saving on the day, to set off doing Rustler as an animatronic puppet.
Once the movie was cut together and we saw what Rustler shots had survived the cut, it was clear that it was going to be easier to achieve him, I think, with a CG model than a puppet, because a lot of the shots involve walking and running around, things that are generally difficult for any puppet to achieve.
The CG dog was such a perfect copy of the real dog, and it was so beautifully built that it would survive quite close scrutiny. So in that sense, the reason to go physical slowly became less and less. I mean, the main reason to go physical was to get interaction with humans, which if you're shooting a ghost dog you don't need anyway, because you have to shoot them separately, and also to get all the detail that you can't get into a computer model, whereas the computer model was so detailed that that wasn't the case. Ultimately it was the logical decision to make to replace the physical altogether.
My favourite scene with Rustler never made it into the movie and didn't even make it into the special edition, which is incredibly tragic. It involved a scene that got cut out of the movie very early, and we never even begun the effect shots for it, so there's nothing to show. It was where Frank goes to his mailbox and the mailman was walking away. I wanted this one shot to have the ghost, dog, Rustler, snapping at the mailman crazily like dogs do. And the closest we ever got to completing the scene was a reference shot that we did of me running around with this rubber dog. So I don't think we should really cut that shot into the movie. I don't think it would work that well. There was another Rustler shot that was quite funny, which followed the fly spray in the kitchen. It was a shot where we had the judge chasing him around the house trying to get his jawbone back, and for a few seconds Rustler defies gravity.
Alright, what's up? Are you guys unionizing? Is that what this is about?
Once again, a lot of this work that had been done building these puppets sort of hit the cutting room floor, so, I hope those guys forgive me. In our script we had a character called the Gatekeeper, who was the the guardian of the cemetery. He was supposed to be like a big bully, thuggish sidekick to Hiles, the drill sergeant. Initial ideas were some sort of an ogre or a demonic looking creature who was sort of guarding the gate, guarding the way into the cemetery.
We played around with various sketches and more maquettes, doing a huge number of little sculptures, trying to figure out what sort of look he'd have. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not sure still, I proceeded to do one as a hugely overweight, baby-like cherub.
I really liked the idea of the Gatekeeper being a cherub. I thought that was fun.
The idea of doing a totally naked, flying baby with flapping wings, fully talking face, wobbling flesh was daunting to say the least.
Richard Taylor's guys, built a very elaborate suit for a performer to wear, and it had a radio-controlled face and motorised wings that would flap up and down like a little cupid. I think there's something funny about a character whose wings are flapping desperately hard, but it's never ever going to actually lift them off the ground.
All I knew was this big rubber baby with this little voice that would say, I can't see Charlie, 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 I need to come down now. And it was bizarre, and I don't know if I ever met that person. But I had this relationship with her, I felt like I had to take care of her because she a lot of times couldn't speak and couldn't get her ideas across, but she was this big rubber baby person, and her name was Alice. And
Y tus trailers, visita mi canal.
Jeff Combs was someone who I had known from the Reanimator movies. I'd never met him, but I was a big Reanimator fan, still am. And these films are about 10 years old, and I hadn't seen him doing any movies in recent times. And I wondered, where's the Reanimator guy now? He'd be someone who was interesting. And I mentioned his name to Victoria Burrows, and she tracked him down and asked him to come in to audition for us. And I remember the first time that Jeff walked into the audition room, he ran up to me and he shook my hand, and his first words were, Do you know you and I are both in the Fangoria Hall of Fame?
This is very rare. He met me before I auditioned. He wanted to just meet me and say, this is sort of what I'm looking for. Now, go away and come back in 10 minutes and we'll do it.
He proceeded to do a really, you know, great audition. We put him through the hoops. I remember he wanted to audition with his glasses on. He had an idea that this character wore glasses. And I couldn't imagine Damage in glasses, so I asked him to take his glasses off after the first take.
Now, you have to imagine, I'm blind. I can't see. I've got pages. Fortunately, I had it memorized, but I always have that crutch, and so I had to basically take my glasses off and act with Michael J. Fox as a blur before me. It was pretty weird. I have a blurry memory of what the audition was like.
We created this character who was like this FBI agent who the government have sent in to, you know, to break and to bust cults and sects, and he's been doing this for like 15 years, and he's the guy that always just gets sent in to go undercover for 6 months before they crack the case, you know, and the problem with Dammers is that they haven't deprogrammed him in between missions. They have given him no therapy whatsoever in the last 15 years, and the poor guy has just like sacrificed his sort of like his personality for his country.
If you take nationalism that far, it really turns into fervent fascism. So that's sort of like where the haircut came in.
Jeff turns up in New Zealand and comes up to me, and he's got a library book. He'd been to the library.
A Wellington Public Library, and I got out some books on Hitler, pictorial books, and I found photos of young Hitler.
And he says, I think Dammer should have this sort of haircut, and it was the sort of Hitler haircut where he's like shaved himself around just above his ears. And he says, you know, I think this would be a really great look for Dammers. I thought, yeah, that's great, that's going to be great. So Jeff went off and got this sort of this haircut. And then he comes back, and without me knowing, he goes and he visits Richard Taylor.
He wanted us to make him little tiny appliances that would fit behind his ears and force them forward. The idea was that it would make him look slightly geeky or a bit awkward.
The last touch was the idea that we had of putting black contact lenses on him.
He had this image and this vision of this man having these dark, black, beady billiard balls of eyes that like were alive and yet dead.
So I'm on the set working on the film, and I get this sort of tap on my shoulder. I turn around, and it's Jeff standing there. He's got the Hitler haircut, and he's got these things glued behind his ears that are making his ears stick out. And he says, "What do you think? What do you think?"
I get all the fruity cases, Mrs. Snitsky.
For God's sake, come in and sit down.
Another area that Jeff Combs had input into in terms of the Dammers character was this chest tattooing or scarring thing that was made for him, and I know that he worked very hard with Richard Taylor to create the perfect combination of sort of cultish type tattoos and carvings on his chest. He was very particular in the sort of symbols that he wanted to be on there.
What was really great about it was Richard Taylor and all those guys involved me in the design of this thing. They came to me with sketches and they said, this is what we have, and which was really phenomenal. And they said, but what do you think? I mean, almost to the point they said, you draw one. Go home and take some of this, and here's everything that we have, and you come back. Well, I went home and I drew one, and it was so wonderfully collaborative. Just like every aspect for me on this movie was a wonderful collaborative effort.
My body is a roadmap of pain.
1974. Children of Lucifer. 3 years undercover, drinking goat's blood.
The old butt ring. Another one of another one of Peter's ideas, actually, and he brought it up fairly early on, but it never quite got written into the script. You have to figure Milton, Special Agent Dammers, having been in all of these hideous cults and sects, that some pretty damaging things have happened to him, despite the fact that he's also just kind of an uptight sort of fella. He would have he would have kind of a hemorrhoidal condition, a chronic hemorrhoidal condition. In fact, no, and so you know, he needs a little protection, and so Peter had this idea of this butt ring, and so they went to a store where you can get these things. What do you call this kind of a store? Like a medical equipment store. You know, we want a walker, or we want a IV, or, you know, a butt ring. And they brought it back, and yeah, it was a butt ring, but it was kind of big, and so it couldn't be portable. It would look ridiculous pulling this big thing out. So the prop guys, brilliant guys that they are, they go, okay, and they run off and they come back and they go, how's this? And it was perfect. Great little tiny little thing, about like that, perfect size. I said, where did you get this? And they said, it's an inner tube for a wheelbarrow. No one would know. It just looks like a little mini butt donut.
In the movie, there's a number of shots where I wanted the camera to be travelling at a very high speed. For instance, when we're travelling through the cemetery with the Reaper's point of view and we're racing past tombstones, or we're travelling down the hillside over the rooftops when Michael's gliding down as a ghost. It's not exactly practical to use a helicopter to fly like 3 feet over people's rooftops or through a cemetery, so, you know, you build a big model and suddenly the whole thing becomes easy and containable. But you don't want people to realise that they're miniatures, so, you know, fortunately Richard Taylor's team did a wonderful job at, you know, at recreating a lot of these miniature environments. So these rushing POVs were achieved by using a snorkel lens mounted on a motion control camera, which would fly over a miniature. Because of the depth of field requirements, so that everything in the miniature was sharp from the foreground right the way to the background, we had to use very long exposures on each frame, so we'd shoot maybe 1 or 2 frames a second, and just like a 10-second shot would maybe take 30 minutes to shoot. Another one of my favourite special effects shots in the film is a very simple one again, but I just like it because it's kind of like, to me, it's really a simple trick that's totally believable. And it's the shot where the camera's racing through the cemetery and goes right up to the cop car, and we see Lucy in the back of the car. We did a shot on location in the cemetery where we had, you know, the camera on a motorcycle, and it was racing through the graveyard and going up to the car, and it wasn't really fast enough, and it wasn't sort of spectacular enough shot, and it didn't feel Reaper-like because it's the Reaper's POV as he's rushing towards her. We ended up shooting a lot of footage with a model cemetery for other shots, and so I decided we'd have another go at doing this shot with the miniatures. So that shot's actually a totally model shot with a computerized, you know, tranny stuck into the car. I think there's probably quite a few shots in The Frighteners that people have never realized are actually model shots.
You have to take great reward in the fact that the audience don't realise that they're miniatures, because in doing so you have been totally successful, but at the end of the day it leaves you a little bit hollow, because you're wondering if people actually realise the incredible workload that's gone into some of the shots.